Hello, my name is Fraser Simons. This is my channel Springboard Thought. Today I'm doing a tag video. I'm doing the Y tag from Jim's books, reading, and stuff for the reason that Y is every Canadian city's airport starts with the letter Y, so it feels like a tag, which Remembered Reading pointed out in the comments on Jim's original tag video, so I thought I would jump in. I have remixed some of these prompts to make them a little bit more Canadian and stuff that I have answers for. Some of the other ones from which I have replaced, I didn't have an answer for, so this is just my way of, remixing it so I could contribute instead of answering like 3 questions and then leaving. And the W ones weren't similar things that I could answer, so I've just sort of done a little hatchet job on the Y only tag. So the first prompt that I made is, all Canadian airports start with the letter Y. What is the airport code for your favorite Canadian city? Have you read a book set in that city? I live near Calgary, so the nearest airport to me is YYC. This is definitely not my favorite city. My favorite city is Toronto, I think. I have been to the island and I've been to Vancouver, but Toronto just has a different energy that I like quite a bit. And that airport code is YYZ. And the book that I've read that is set there is a police procedural with like a different bent, I guess. The third book in the Issa Katak and Rachel Getty series by Ozma Zahanet Khan. And these books are really interesting to me because they, for one, are really good at situating themselves in genre. It's definitely commercial fiction, but it's well-written commercial fiction in my opinion. It's accessible, it's interesting, it puts forth ideas about racism and classism and systemic problems within the actual police department in which these characters are trying to function. Issa is the head of a experimental unit called a community policing effort, which is based in the metro section of Toronto, if I remember correctly. And each book focuses on a different international incident or a major incident in Canada. This one is on the Syrian refugee crisis. I thought it was really great. I didn't know much about it. And the nice thing is, at the end of each of these books, Khan puts in a bunch of actual facts about the incident that she did for the research of the book, presumably. And so you get it kind of peppered throughout the plot, and then you've got like an actual, factual accounting of what actually happened and how it relates to the plot as you've consumed it. Some of the books are more successful than others. The first book is probably my favorite overall. But this book is really great. I didn't know too much about the Syrian refugee crisis, and it is a big thing here in Canada, even still. But a couple of years ago, we had all the conservatives screeching about giving money to Syrian refugees and giving them safe haven because Trudeau tweeted out that anyone would be welcome, and he didn't really think that through, so we had like an influx of a lot of people. Conservatives were, of course, pissed off that they always were with their vaguely racist rhetoric. And of course it ended up being fine. Syrians have cultivated a lot of entrepreneurship in Canada, and people are still sort of using that as America uses the shorthand of the Mexican immigration problems forever and ever ad nauseum. But this book is also sort of why I was a little lukewarm on What Strange Paradise, which won the Giller Prize this year. It has a similar situation with the refugees arriving on an island in the same manner in which this story takes place. And so it was sort of retread ground for me, and I think this book actually does it better than that literary fiction book. And it's obviously quite a different reframe. Obviously, I really like mysteries, crime, and was invested in these characters already, but it definitely tempered my relationship with What Strange Paradise. Y is for YA, young adult. How would you rank the following popular YA books? The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, The Book Thief by Markus Zusak, and The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I have only read The Hunger Games. I thought it was pretty middling. I gave it 3 stars. It was very overhyped when I read it, which is saying something because it was still like years later, but I think it's because the movies were coming out still. But I thought it was fine, you know. I came at it from reading a lot of stories that had a similar setup, and I liked that it was a little bit different, but when you listen to it on audio, the diction and the sentence format and construction of the paragraphs, etc., are really boring, and it's meant to be accessible, but it adds a lot of like, she went to here, then she did this, then she did that, she likes this, she doesn't like that, etc. It's like very boring to hear the same sort of structure all of the time, and so that definitely didn't help me out. Fault in Our Stars, I've only seen the movie, and I thought that was fine. I'm definitely not on the John Green train. I read the Anthropocene reviewed just this year, and it felt like a very in-group thing with just his fans being in the in-group and me definitely being on the out-group. There was all these like shorthand remarks to even like his partner's name, somebody's name, I don't know. He was just referring to random people in his life without actually, you know, codifying who they were, so that was strange. And then he was articulating thoughts that sometimes are interesting, most of the time were so sort of vapid or uninteresting to me that I wouldn't even articulate that to a friend in passing, probably. So I don't know, like that thing about Halley's Comet that he goes on about, welcome to every single book on history ever where they talk about Halley's Comet, John. And then The Book Thief I haven't read yet, but I've heard it's quite good. So I imagine out of all of those, it would probably go Book Thief, and then Hunger Games, and then Fault in Our Stars, but I have no idea. A good YA novel that I read recently, as a tangent, would be Loveless by Osman. She is fantastic. This is about a questioning queer kid who kind of navigates to a point where they think they're asexual and is just sort of traversing that trajectory as her other queer friends are very focused on romantic aspects or sexual aspects, and she's trying to figure out the two, you know, delineations in her own mind. There's some sort of like slut shaming being examined in a good way, I think. She is a 21, 22-year-old first year of college person who hasn't ever had sex, and the sort of impetus for her questioning things is they play Spin the Bottle, I think it is, and it comes out that she's a virgin and she doesn't think it's like a wild thing to say, and it's sort of like everybody's sort of very surprised and isn't sure what her relationship to those things are, like if it's religious or spiritual or what have you. I thought it was fascinating, interesting, really good narration on the audiobook. One of the best surprises of the year for me. Have you read a book set in a place beginning with Y or Z, or by an author from a country beginning with Y or Z? I chose Yellowknife, and I have read a number of books set there. The main base camp for a romance/crime book series set in Canada. I like this whole series by Kelly Armstrong. This is Alone in the Wild, the Rockton books, of which the last one is coming out, gosh, maybe this year? I'm not sure, maybe it's even already out. But the series is coming to a close. The setup is that a small town north of Yellowknife is completely secluded, doesn't even have electricity, I think. It's a very small, like, commune type place, and it's a refuge for people who are running away from domestic violence or sometimes the law. You have to pay to get into this place. There's one sheriff, one deputy, and then like one bar. So it's like a very tiny place. I think the entire population is like 50 people or something like that, maybe 100 max. And the main character is flown up there with her best friend who is in a domestic violence altercation. She convinces her to go to this community, and she has police experience and so is deputized, and it's about her story there, as well as a slow burning romance, which I won't give away, but it is perfectly married with that concept, I think. The only sort of suspending disbelief that you have to do is the existence around this commune, how it sort of functions and stuff like that. Once you get past that, it's really interesting. It's all about survival up there. It seems pretty well researched. And then of course every single book there's like some murder or some crime that they have to solve at the same time as all these B plots. And the B plots go right into each other book and sort of wind together to make an overall arc. It's really fun if you like that type of thing. Y is for Young, Canadian father of Neil Young, the musician. Have you read a book written by the parent of a famous author? If you're struggling, vice versa. And I guarantee you, if you Google this, you have definitely read at least one thing. But for me, I chose Catch-22, Joseph Heller. He is a huge prick. I hate that book. This is just an opportunity for me to rant about it. I thought it was terrible, and it seems like he's a dick in person to his famous daughter, who wrote a memoir about essentially growing up with him. He's famous for having said to his daughter, who believed a character in the book that was based on her, which all of the women are terribly written in Catch-22 anyway, he famously replied to her that she wasn't interesting enough to be written about anyway. Y is for YouTube. What channels do you like to watch apart from the BookTube channels? I watch ACG Gaming for video game reviews. He's pretty solid usually. I watch my friends Lowell Francis and Jason Cordova, who are game designers and run actual plays of tabletop role-playing games. A lot of videos in which I appear myself and play with them. They run games like 3 days out of the week. They have a rotating cast of people coming in and playing the games, and they play a whole bunch of different stuff. So they're widely eclectic. Always like watching them. They run games very well and have they cultivate play culture that is excellent to watch, in my opinion. I also follow KEXP, Tiny Desk Concerts, NPR, Philosophy Tube, and Folding Ideas, and things like that, like Nerd Writer, stuff like that on like the critique of film is really fascinating to me. Y is for Yellow. Do you have a favorite Yellow book? I do not. Strangely enough, all of the ones that have yellow covers I am not like super in love with, but I chose 3 from my TBR that could be books that I fall in love with yellow covers. Guess whose YouTube channel I found this on? This is not a novel. A Brief History of 7 Killings, which I've heard is just incredible, but I haven't gotten to. And Natasha's Dance, which was recommended to me as a Russian history book that was excellent. And then finally, Y is for Year. Do you have a best reading year? Maybe the most books read or the best books read right now. This year for sure. I've read the most. I'm at like 515 books for the year. The previous year was like 470, I think. And I've definitely rated way more 5 stars than ever before. Narrowed down what I really like, what my moods are, and how much I would really appreciate a particular book that I'm picking up. And so I just naturally have been reading more 5-star reads because of that. And that's it. So the last thing to do is tag some people, and I'm looking for people with Y in their name here. First of all, if you're Canadian, I'll tag you because you live in a city with an airport that starts with a Y, and I'm pretty sure Remembered Reads is going to do it anyway, so I don't need to do her. So Duncan McCurdy, I believe you're in Canada, right? Kier the Scrivener, who I've been tagging quite a bit, so if this is a bit much, then, just ignore it. No harm done. Rosie Cockshot, you're in Canada, I believe. Attention is Canadian as well. I think you might even be in Calgary, so close to me. So I tag you for sure, especially since his tags are always hilarious. The Book Bully, Shaylin Writes, which definitely, I don't think she follows me, but you never know. Emmy also is in London, Ontario, but she definitely doesn't follow me either. And that's it, I think, for Canadians. If I missed you, I apologize. Consider yourself tagged. And if you, as usual with Jim's tags, if you even vaguely associate with the letter Y, feel free to do it, and otherwise just do it anyway.